The Daily Read. Your source for news, politics, sports, and all things trending. Here's your host, Marcus Gentry.
Allowed to transport them out of Alabama right now. Basically, everything is shut down. So even though these are apparently my children, I don't have access to them.
How much money do you think you spent?
It's close to $250,000.
IVF now accounts for roughly 2% of births in the...
Welcome to the Daily Read, and I am your host, Marcus Gentry. Last week on the show, my lighting was bad. I'm going to try to get some ring lights in here. But I want to thank you for joining me today because we're going to talk about this IVF. You see, about 2 years ago, it seemed like all the chickens are coming home to roost. Because about 2 years ago, we talked about the fight for abortion, and there was a white lady, who had talked about how back when Ronald Reagan was president, they was trying to figure out how they was going to get the numbers up. And when I mean numbers, I mean white numbers, because they saw that the population of minorities in this country was vastly outnumbering whites, where it's inching up. And even though we only make up 15% of the population, if you add the other races in, the Hispanics, the Chinese, the Japanese Americans, the people from the Southern Islands, when you add all of these people up, whites are basically being bred out. And when you come to abortion, they claim abortion is because of the church. They feel like you're killing a human being. But that's not really the case. You got to read between the lines, people. The whole issue of abortion is about getting the numbers up. And we finna get into today's show.
The business, motherfucker. The Daily Read. Your source for news, politics, sports, and all things trending. Here's your host, Marcus Gentry.
Allowed to transport them out of Alabama right now. Basically, everything is shut down. So even though these are apparently my children, I don't have access to them.
How much money do you think you spent?
It's close to $250,000.
IVF now accounts for roughly 2% of births in the U.S., but the Alabama Supreme Court's ruling creating legal liability for destroying embryos in the state has left the medical community in limbo.
You might have been able to predict what is happening in America right now, but it is happening. Tonight we can report a university has been forced to halt in vitro fertilization or IVF procedures after local judges ruled that they will treat as a legal matter those frozen embryos as, quote, children. The judges say the embryos feature the image of God.
Well, one of Alabama's senators appears to be confused about this issue, and I bet you can guess which one. On the sidelines of the right-wing CPAC conference yesterday, Republican Tommy Tuberville reversed his position several times in less than 2 minutes when our colleague Dasha Burns asked him about the ruling in Alabama.
Let me stop this right here before crazy Tuberville gets on this screen and starts spouting off craziness. These people are satisfied right now. They still want more money and more power to stay in the hands of white people. But they're satisfied with Donald Trump coming in with the tax cut for the wealthy, which the majority of people in this country are white, who are wealthy. Then they had the abortion. They banned abortions. These people did that because more whites have abortions than blacks. You can look in any child support court and tell we is not going down there having abortions. Yes, some black girls do. But on the overall, the vast majority of people that get abortions are white people. They tried to put a stop to that through pretending like this was some crusade from the church. But that's not really what this is about. Now, you got this crazy judge who really believes that embryos are babies instead of flesh. He done went to another level, which is finna mess up everything, because all of these same people who want abortion banned don't want to touch the IVF. Hundreds of thousands of dollars goes into the IVF every year. That's revenue for your state. And you can look at him and tell as he's talking, he's finally starting to realize, uh-oh.
Do you have a reaction to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling on the fact that embryos are children?
Yeah, I was all for it. You just got to look at everything going on in the country. It's just an attack on families, attack on kids. Anything that we can do for the future of our young people, because they're our number one commodity. We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. But
IVF is used to have more children, and right now IVF services are paused at some of the clinics in Alabama. Aren't you concerned that this could impact people who are trying to have kids?
Well, that's for another conversation. I think the big thing is right now you go back to the situation and try to work it out to where it's best for everybody. I mean, that's what the whole abortion issue is about. So
this really isn't about abortion, it's about IVF and the concern that now families might not have access to it.
But it's about the same direction, but I agree. But people need to have access. People need to have, we need more kids. We need the people to have the opportunity to have kids. I'd have to look at the entire bill of how it's written. I have not seen it.
Supreme Court decision.
Well, I know that. But I'd have to look, I haven't looked at it. But this is a state issue.
Women are going to be able to have IVF treatments already in some places.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
What do you say to them?
Unfortunate.
Alienate some voters in the general election?
I don't know. It might some, but you don't hear a lot of talk about it.
You see, it ain't hitting yet until he starts talking to some of his staff, and then he calls the governor in his home state of Alabama. And the governor tells him, man, we finna bleed a lot of money behind IVF. This is what banning abortion did. It's a direct link to a ban on abortions. Let's continue on.
I mean, that's not a big conversation.
Well, it's a conversation now, and IVF is not a Democrat or Republican issue. Families across the board use it. What is your message to the Supreme Court if this does in fact stop families from being able to use IVF?
Well, we don't need that.
Wow, Joe. We need more kids. We need more kids.
God.
Amen to that. IVF gives the gift and the miracle of children to people who otherwise couldn't have it. Obviously, no command of the issue. He's talking about a bill.
You see, he's touching on it. Pay attention to what he just said. We need more kids. There are some places in America where we overpopulated. He knows what's going on, but he's trying to remain fair and balanced. We need more kids. What he wants to say, but he can't because he'll get fired. We need more white babies. Whites get more abortions than blacks. Whites do more IVFs than blacks. Think about that. whites do more abortions than blacks. They stopped abortions. Now, whites still do more IVFs, but because of abortion, they stopping IVF because some crazy judge done went and said that embryos are children. So hold up. Now y'all messing with the money. See, the whole point of abortion, stopping it, was y'all was saying embryos are people. So now that a judge said IVF embryos are people, and if you kill these people, you can go to jail. Now you messing up the money. We finna see within the next year where these same people who wanted a ban on abortion, we're gonna see where their morals are at. Let's continue on.
He hasn't read the bill. There's no bill. This is a Supreme Court ruling.
That's a quote from the ruling. And this came out of Alabama, where 2 clinics in the University of Alabama are now halting those IVF procedures. The new court ruling suggests that the people involved could even be prosecuted. That ruling, like a long wave of Republican anti-choice measures, comes out of the Supreme Court overturning 50 years of precedent in Roe v. Wade. And we'll return to that in a moment. The ruling sending shockwaves across the nation as parents, doctors, and legislators see this Republican effort to limit rights, to limit medical choice, and now potentially to interfere with family planning techniques, procedures, and efforts by parents who want to have kids. Remember, amidst all this is a crackdown on parents who are trying to have children. Now, an attorney with the Center for Reproductive Rights does know with regard to this ruling, it does not appear to automatically create, quote, criminal liability for IVF providers in the practice of IVF or the creation of those embryos. The legally extreme ruling could ultimately be pared back on appeal. And there is no nationally recognized precedent of any kind for claiming that embryos are legally equivalent to human beings under law. And the legal result could include, as these people are worried about, the ultimate prosecution of doctors or scientists who work with them as, well, human murderers, right? If you take this to its logical conclusion, that would be the risk. And I'm telling you that without precedent, there are courts that might ultimately limit this.
Alabama's High Court found that the destruction of embryos constituted a crime under the
That was like yesterday, right?
Very recently.
Personally, I think it was a terrible ruling. I think the one thing folks should take from this is these are...
Now, each and every one of these governors that's finna get over here, even the one from Tennessee in the state that I live, these people are gonna get up here and talk about how, you know, it was a bad decision. But the judge was going by all the years you guys have been saying save the babies. You guys have been saying aborting a fetus should be illegal. The judge said, okay, a fetus is a baby. Now you got to deal with the fallout. And it's finna be some fallout because a lot of these clinics, these doctors ain't trying to go to jail. You know.
State issues now.
I have not had a chance to look at the Alabama legal rulings. I mean, I wouldn't even want to try to pretend to understand what the issue is there.
Are you comfortable with IVF as a procedure?
I am, yeah.
I'll just say I'm generally in favor of IVF. I can't speak to that particular case, but I'm generally in favor of that.
Do you believe that destroying embryos is a crime?
No, I mean, listen, we the IDF and those kind of infertilization, that's not Oklahoma. But I will say, if you want to talk about Roe v. Wade.
You hear what he just said? The woman asked him, do you think destroying embryos should be illegal? He has no problem with that. But this is the same thing these people was doing with abortions. Remember what I said. Abortion is a topic because these people want to get their numbers up. But now that you have this in vitro in jeopardy, which brings in millions every year for a state, millions, these people are catching hell now. It's finna get serious.
We believe that every state has the right to choose what they want to do on this issue.
Nikki Haley has struck some chords that are similar to what you just said about the sort of need to find areas of consensus, and it's a very divisive issue. It's surprising to see her say that she thinks frozen embryo has personhood status.
You know, you have a lot of people out there in this country that they wouldn't have children if
The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
An untold number of Americans got an uneasy reminder of how reliant we are on our devices. Tonight, after an hours-long and what appeared to be a widespread outage, at&t says it has restored cell service to all of its impacted customers, many of whom woke up this morning to phones that weren't taking or making calls or texts. The carrier has not said how many people were affected, but several cities reported issues for callers trying to get through to 911 centers. According to the tracking site Down Detector, user reports began spiking around 4 a.m. Eastern. 7 hours later, at&t reporting that 3/4 of its network had been restored. Tonight, the search for a cause being watched closely by the nation's cyber.
This story fascinated me, which is why I wanted to put it on the show today, because it links to last week's show when I was talking about the nuclear warheads that are satellite busters that Vladimir Putin is trying to put out into space. You see, those satellite busters are going to destroy the satellites, which is going to knock out all communications, all cell phones. Everything is dead, done. And then Donald Trump shot those missiles off the coast of California. When he shot those missiles off the coast of California when he was president, nobody talked about it. Nobody said anything except for one show that I saw it on, and that was Rachel Maddow, MSNBC. And then that story disappeared. You see, they had a treaty to keep those mid-range nuclear warheads or bombs from being produced. Donald Trump broke the treaty first. So when you combine the fact that they can knock out satellites and darken the whole country, and then they can shoot nuclear weapons directly to this country, that's a deadly combination. And I can't believe ain't nobody talking about this. And the reason why I did this story is because for some strange reason, I think this was a test run that the government did to see just how it would affect masses of people and see if they would panic. I think this was a test run. Government does experiments on people, and I seriously believe this was a test run.
Our security agency, Liz Kreutz now with the very latest.
Tonight, still no explanation for the massive nationwide cell phone outage. at&t, one of the largest wireless carriers in the country, going down early this morning for some customers, unable to send or receive any calls or texts.
As soon as I woke up this morning, it was gone.
The outage lasting for hours.
Didn't have any service. I need to make some phone calls.
The company saying wireless service is now fully restored, but the FBI and Department of Homeland Security are investigating. The Bureau saying, should we learn of any malicious activity, we will respond accordingly.
I think a lot of people right now are asking, how does something like this happen?
Unfortunately, the technologies that we use are becoming increasingly complicated. This highlights the dependencies we have. on very complex systems.
Some emergency departments urging people not to call 911 unnecessarily. Massachusetts State Police saying they were flooded with calls that clogged their system as people tried to test their phones.
Lexington 911, where's your emergency?
This Kentucky 911 dispatch center had normal call volume this morning, but says today's outage is a good reminder to have alternate modes of communication.
The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
Also tonight, they've long been a source of aggravation for high school students. Standardized tests. In recent years, many colleges have stopped requiring them for admissions. But now, as Zincle SMWA reports, they're making a comeback.
I wanted to add this story also. I remember the SATs and things of that nature. I found this fascinating too. You have a lot of moving parts, and I always tell people I see a bigger picture. You know, when I'm on the outlook of life, I see a bigger picture. And you already done took away abortion, which is going to raise the population of whites in this country. You're having problems with that when it comes to the in vitro. You want to keep the in vitro also at the same time that you're killing abortion. You want to keep the in vitro so more whites can have babies. Now you jump over here, they're messing with this SAT stuff. You see, minorities have been, yes, given a way into colleges that they wouldn't normally have. You have a pushback on that. And the pushback is on the lower grades, K through 12, they're taking books. Okay? Let me give you an insight to what I'm thinking and how my mind works, people. K through 12, alright? They're taking books that they don't agree with because it's educating people in a way they don't want them to be educated. They want them to keep them asleep. And yes, they throw some gay stuff out and all of that, but it's not all about homosexual books. Don't get it twisted, people. They're tossing out books about African American history. You know, they don't want people who are white to feel uncomfortable about knowing that their ancestors had us in slavery. So that's what's going on K through 12. So when you got these K through 12 minorities who are already being downgraded as far as education, now on the collegiate level, they're starting to make higher demands on your smartness, your education, on how you come when you come out of high school. Now they're trying to make it tougher for you to get into colleges. I wonder, is anybody seeing this? It's like everything is being systematically stacked on top of each other. K through 12, we're going to take out certain books. You know, collegiate level, we're going to make it harder for people to get in. They say people, they're not going to say minorities. We want the best of the best. Now, I'm gonna go there. You have minorities in this country. The Clarence Thomases of the world, who feel as if this is a good thing for minorities because it'll make them do better. My problem I have when I see minorities say and do things like that is they're trying to make an elitist class of minorities to where you got the vast majority of whites and a sprinkle handful of blacks that might be a little wealthier than other blacks, so they can send their kids to more private schools to get up there in them colleges. And a lot of people don't see no problem with that. I see a major problem with that. That elitist attitude that some minorities have, it disgusts me. It makes me want to spit on the ground. Not on nobody. I'm not going to ever spit on nobody. But it disgusts me when I see elitist type people, especially in minorities. There's nothing wrong with wanting better for you and your kids and everything like that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to drive a BMW instead of a Honda. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the whole, I'm going to put it to you like this. I saw a meme, right? On one side of a tree, you had whites trying to get to the top of the tree, and they were pushing each other up, and some of the ones on the top limb was reaching down, pulling up the other whites. On this side, you had blacks, and they were just scrambling over each other, kicking each other down off the bottom rung of the tree. And it was just a simple meme, but it spoke like it'll speak to your soul when you see that. If you understand it, when you see it, it'll mess you up. Like, this is really how we doing it? They're going to talk about that on this clip.
Yale University tonight is the latest school reversing course, now requiring standardized test scores for college admissions after hundreds of schools shifted to test optional in recent years.
Students are way more than just a test score.
Yeah, it's a test that has a lot of pressure on us.
Yale saying the tests indicate a student's success at its school, pointing out they read applications holistically to paint a picture of a student's strengths. The school adding they'll also accept advanced placement or IB exam scores starting for the class entering fall 2025. Dartmouth College issuing a similar decision earlier this month after a study revealed standardized test scores were a better predictor of academic success than a high school GPA. Critics will point out that students with less resources will likely have less access to test preparation.
So I think it's very important that...
Now, did you hear what she just said? Students with less resources will have a worse chance of passing these SATs because they have a lack of tutors. They have a lack of calm, good environments to learn in their schools because they have to go to some of the worst schools. It's just a whole lot of factors that goes into poverty. And then you have only 15% of the population in this country is black. Only 15% people. We are not the majority in this country. No matter how many blacks you see, because you live in a black area. If you live in Atlanta, Nashville, Houston, yeah, you're gonna see a lot of blacks because that's where you at. That's where you come from. But make no mistake about it. We are only 15% of the population. So when you have 15% of the population, and then you have the schools are taking away certain learning factors because they feel like it's too liberal. Then you add the SAT stuff. Give it 5 years. I say 5 years, and you're going to see a drop in minorities getting into college, except for black women. Do I need to say that again? Except for black women. And the reason why is because, like I always say, our society in our culture, not anybody else's culture, has placed the black woman ahead in our society. These dudes, these black guys in these suits, these black guys running around here with these fancy jobs, call them top tier men. They could be top tier men all they want to. I'm talking about the overall blacks in America. This country has placed the black woman ahead of us. No other country in this, no other nationality in this country does that. So you're going to start seeing a drop within the next 5 years of minorities, blacks in particular, getting into colleges. Now the female blacks, they're going to start dropping too, but it's not going to be nowhere near the males. It's going to be crazy. Let's continue on.
If admissions officers are going to use test scores, they appropriately interpret the test scores in the context that students are coming from.
Earlier research shows family income greatly impacts a student's test performance.
Students from less well-resourced backgrounds may choose to not submit a test score, even when the reality is that it would actually help them substantially in the admissions process.
Students facing this new reality as schools shift to multiple choices for college admission. Zinclair Samoa.
The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
The business, motherfucker.
The Daily Read.
I want to thank you guys for joining me on the Daily Read. This is season 4, and I'm working on my stream deck. A lot of tubers, a lot of content creators, they have gotten this little box, and it does miracles. I have everything at my fingertips. I'm working on it. I just got a new setup here, as you guys can see, by going back to my old shows and seeing how it is now. So I'm starting a new format. Also, I'm going to start going live. I'm going to start off slow, at least one day out of a week. I'm going to try to go live. And we'll throw a topic in the air and let people comment on it. We'll discuss it. Also, I might get a phone line. People can call in. I'm going to have the show on a delay just in case somebody get on here cursing. I can cut them off and end the conversation before it gets on YouTube. So, you know, I'm trying to do some different things. I'm still inside my truck. I am a truck driver, people. You know, I gave up everything to start my truck company, but we're going to make it. We're going to keep the show alive. We're going to keep it running. This is the Daily Read, and I'm out.